Hello and welcome to DDOCast episode 390, recorded live on Sunday, July 19th. I'm your host, Patrick. With me this week, we've got a great set of guests that were very kind. We literally threw this show together in about an hour. I had another show planned, didn't, kind of fell through, so we're going to do something different on the fly. It'll be great, but we got a great group of folks. Before we start, this first screenshot, there was no screenshot of the week. What happened, I'm not sure what happened, but it looks like Jerry got some of the time off. However, this is a promo shot for upcoming Update 27. It shows a couple of Archons, and I'm not sure exactly what the thing with the bow is. It looks like an evil Archon and a dredge. So there you go. We'll have some more of the promo shots throughout the show. However, we're going to introduce our guests. We have... returning to the show, Voodu from the High Lords of Malkir on Sarlona.
Hey everyone, this show is going to be so cool when we figure it out.
Yeah, right? We've also got Steiner-Davion from the Defense Guild, also on Sarlona.
Greetings, everybody.
Welcome back. And a new guest, Kantouch from Blood Rage Guild, and I don't know what server you're on.
Kenneth. Howdy, folks.
Great. And we will we let him on the show even though he's a Cowboys fan. I had to have some sympathy
America's football team.
I had to have some sympathy for him after last year's disappointing playoff loss to the Packers.
Des Bryant caught the ball.
We like to talk about Dungeons & Dragons online nearly every weekend. You can watch us through Twitch, YouTube, the DDO forums, or from our website at DDOcast.com. DDOcast is hosted by Cyber Ears, the awesome podcast hosting network. Shows are usually available within a few days of recording. Next show will probably be next weekend. Working on getting a debate episode set up. You can stay updated by following us on social media pages or our website, DDOcast.com, with our calendar. On the podcast this week, we've got some more Update 27 news. It's still on Lemania, and the raid came out this week. We've also got some community news, and we're going to do a discussion on getting ready for raids. So just kind of some things that you want to take into account before if you're just getting into the raiding scene, maybe you've been in the raiding scene for a long time. These tips might also be helpful for you there. But we're going to start with flagging. Every raid has some sort of flagging mechanism, even the ones you don't think do. Vision of Destruction and How to Zoriat you might think don't have raiding mechanics, but they did once upon a time. It's just the whole server got to unlock them, and then they were unlocked. But
Tempest Spine.
Yeah, Tempest Spine doesn't have... Tempest Spine is a quest that's a raid.
Chronoscope.
Chronoscope. Most have a flagging mechanism. Most of the big raids. There's some raids that are essentially quests that are raids, but in any case, so what do you guys have tips for people, particularly people that don't know how to do the flagging or what a particular raid might involve for that? What do you recommend for getting flagged? How to figure out how to go about getting flagged, what do you need to do, all that stuff.
www.ddowiki.com.
Boom.
If you don't have anybody else that can help you out doing it, wiki it.
Yep.
You really stole my thunder with that one, but you know, if you can also ask your friends or your guildmates if they help you out. But yeah, if you're not in a guild or you don't have like friends that can point you in the right direction, DDO Wiki is an awesome resource. If you don't use it, start. It is awesome.
Yeah, and some kind of tricks to figure out if you are flagged. I think all of the raids can be shared. Maybe one or two can't. But when you share it, it'll pop up for the person who shares. This person has not completed something about the quest arc, or isn't on the quest, which will tell you pretty quick that, hey, you're not flagged, so you need to figure out. It won't tell you what, but you can kind of go figure that out.
The other thing you can do, too, if you're not sure if you're flagged or not, is I believe every single raid, with the exception of maybe Hound and Vision of Destruction, the quest entrance is an NPC or something.
There's a quest giver.
Yeah, and they won't give you the raid unless you're flagged.
Raids are a little different. A lot of normal quests, if you can get to the point where it will open the window, like the quest entrance, it will
Yeah.
let you what's called red box, which the term comes from the old Quest UI window. It would have a red box around it to indicate that you weren't flagged for that particular quest. Some quests require some sort of flagging mechanism as well.
Yeah.
Or you have to run them in a chain, something like that.
But with raids, you can't even get to the
Correct.
the Quest UI panel.
The raids won't let you even access the UI panel, so you can't red box, unfortunately. However, you can figure out what you need to do for flagging. Some of them are pretty simple. The Thunderhome quests, the Thunderhome raids, you have to go into the Explorer area, kill one dude. If you have a friend who knows what they're doing, maybe 10 minutes, and you'll be flagged for both. Others, like Abbott, you have to collect 8 pieces out of a sigil from a lot of different places. You can get them in more places than you used to be able to get them. And then you have to run a quest 4 times and do 4 different optionals, but you can only do each optional once per quest. So there's a lot more involved flagging in that case. In a few cases, there's something you have to do every time you're going to run the raid. Demon Queen, for example, you have to run the pre-raid every single time, which is a separate 6-man quest. Vault of Night, you have to run the pre-raid every time, but it's the same quest entrance. The raid is just buried inside that raid entrance, which is also true for Titan. Titan, you have to repair the sigil.
Which is what, 3 quests?
Titan is 3 quests to flag, but then after that you just have to
Yeah.
repair the sigil. You don't have to do anything else. A lot of raids
That's an
these days,
important
though.
point, Patrick, that it's good to emphasize
Yeah.
for people who may not be aware that even after UTR, as long as you have that sigil from doing the Titan raid, you don't have to reflag for it. Even the next life, you just have to have that sigil.
You do have to be able to get to the Restless Isles, though. Which
Yeah,
I think you
you
can do.
can
I think you do
greater
that through a ship,
teleport.
but
Yeah.
so there's some weird mechanics with some of those stuff, but definitely DDO Wiki is a great way to go to find it. Ask if you see a raid LFM up. You can ask, hey, I'm interested in running the raid. What do you have to do to get flagged? Most raid leaders will tell you.
A lot of raids are like 4 quests. Like, let's say Fall of Truth, you got to do 4 quests to flag for that raid. Or there's like Caught in the Web, where it's 11 quests, and then you're flagged.
A lot of quests, but once you're done, you're done. So
Yeah, I think the newer raids, with the exception of the Temple with Deathworm and Thunder and Fire Peaks, tend to be a little bit longer in the flagging quest compared to the older ones. So like Caught in the Web has a lot more quests you have to do.
they're kind of
compared to
telling
some
a
of the
story
original
with that, though. That's
raids.
kind of
Yeah.
what's going on there.
Yeah.
And also, when that came out, everyone was level 20, and it was like level 24 raid. So it gave people a chance to get up
To level up.
levels. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and the chains aren't
but-
really that long.
But the
either, so.
older raids don't. If you know people are going to be running at a certain time, don't necessarily be afraid of being flagged immediately if those people are willing to help carry you through the flagging quest really quick. Like the Vaughn series, you can flag in like an hour, if that.
Just make sure
You can-
that if you're going to join someone's raiding party, like they posted on the forums or your guild raiding party, make sure you're flagged before.
Yeah.
Because don't expect people. The big thing here is don't expect people to be ready and willing to flag you during their raid time. Because they're there to
Right.
raid, they're going to run the raids. If you're not flagged, you're going to miss out.
And
Yeah.
raid flagging persists through epic TRs.
True.
Good point.
Very true.
But not
Yeah.
true reincarnation.
Right.
Right.
Only epic
Yeah.
TRs.
Let's move on to talk a little bit about gear. What are some things? And we're not going to get like really specific about make sure this kind of character has this kind of thing. What are some general things that you should expect to take into a raid?
Resurrection scrolls.
Yep.
Heal scrolls, potions that you should always have with you, a death block item. There are lots of things that you should have with you at all times anyways.
Yeah.
You really want to make sure you have them with you before you go into a raid. Even if you only have a chance to throw a resurrection scroll or a chance to throw a heal scroll, when it's an emergency situation, that can be really handy. And UMD is really easy to get high enough to throw a basic resurrection scroll or heal scroll now.
Especially in epics.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think UMD for a raised dead is 30.
32.
32. Is it 32?
It's low to mid 30s,
Mhm.
but it's not that hard to get when you're in your 20s.
You're
Level
going to
20s.
get plus, if you're level 28, or you get +1 for every epic level you have.
Yep.
So
Yep.
for all your
That's
skills.
8
So,
right there.
Yep. Pretty easy to
Soon
do.
to be
You're
10.
probably going to have some charisma. It's not terribly tough. You get a greater heroism and stuff. But the thing with raids is they usually have some mechanics that are going to challenge various aspects of the party. Some bosses do cursing, which prevents healing. So if you're going to be doing that, you're going to need some curse pots. The Storm Reaver does a lot of electrical damage, so like that Fall of Truth has a lot of electrical damage going around. You might consider getting something that's going to help you with electrical absorption or damage. So there's some specific gear
Or
for
both.
specific quests. Yeah, or both.
Boots of Anchoring for Tower of Despair are good to have. Not necessary, but very good to have.
Fire absorb
Yeah.
for Thunder Peaks.
Yep.
Yeah.
Less of an issue since the fireballs don't currently work. I have no idea if they're going to come back, but less of an issue.
But your standard potions like remove curse, and you don't need like a giant stack of all the other ones like remove paralysis or fear or anything like that, or lesser restoration. But carry a few.
I'm a big advocate that at all times, lesser resto, remove curse, remove disease, neutralize poison, and I'm missing one. Oh, remove blindness. Unless you're immune to those things, you should have those 5 pots with you at all times in every quest, every raid.
Even if you're immune to them, if you get the basic versions of the potions, you can cast those on other people, which can be really helpful.
That is true.
And I would say,
Yep.
raids, when stuff goes south, raids are designed for parties of 12. So when you have 4 people dead, things are going to get a little dicey. Particularly if one of those persons is, say, your main tank, or a kiter, or a healer. And you find that raids can snowball very quickly, particularly if you're on elite difficulties. If you're on epic normal, it's probably not going to happen unless you have a big lag spike, which, well, put that aside because we don't need to get into that. But, epic elite, someone dies, then someone else, and it's a key person, then before you have a chance to react, you've got 3 people dead, now you've got 4 people dead, better come with a plan, now there's 6 people dead, it can really snowball pretty quick. So having people that can do multiple things, it can be very handy, like throw a raise, or, hey, the healer went down, pull out some heal scrolls and pop some heals into the tank to keep him up, because if he goes down, it's going to get really hairy pretty quick. Or some stuff like that. Or if, say, there's one person left and he managed to get a raise off for someone, and start raising pretty quick, and in between, make sure that one person that's kiting everything stays alive, because then it'll really get hairy pretty quick. But you hear a lot about, I think we've probably all had this experience where we've got a raid that's going south pretty quick, and the reason we get back on our feet is because there's people that are able to pull out res scrolls or heal scrolls and do a little something maybe they're not designed for primarily, but can get the party back on its feet.
Yeah, and I would even, if you're really want to be prepared too, I would throw in some like mass cure scrolls, or if you can find some scrolls of like mass protection from elements or something like that, because it'll save a little bit of time, and particularly if your raid's gone pear-shaped and you got a lot of people dead, and and you're only casting a heal scroll on one target at a time, and multiple people are getting raised at once, or in quick succession. By the time you get the heal scroll off on guy number 2, he's already taken a shot and is already dead again. So if you can get a couple like mass cure series off, it'll help prevent that from happening.
A freedom of movement item is going to be really valuable too, and they're a lot easier to get than they used to be. In fact, you've got something like the Orcish Privateer boots, which is your level 24 easy farm out of the Slayer Zone in Epic 3-Barrel Cove. You've got Kundrak Delving Boots out of the Von 6 raid. That's a heroic level item. And you also got your Eternal Potion of Freedom of Movement that, if you missed it from the birthday event, I'm pretty sure that's available as a turn-in from the mysterious remnant guy.
I think it's a is it always available, or is it a...
No, it's not always available.
Right.
Oh, okay. Well, keep an eye on that. If you don't have that and you don't have, another good way to freedom of movement on yourself, that can be really handy in an emergency situation. And we already mentioned heal scrolls a couple of times, but to broaden that, a way to self-heal is really important. And you should have that at all times. Even if it's just the absolute minimum, like potions of cure serious wounds, some way to heal yourself, when it's an emergency.
Yeah, when things go pear-shaped, don't expect the healer to be healing you. Unless you're the tank, then you might...
when things go pear-shaped.
Yeah.
If I've got spell
I like
points and
that.
access to it, I always have Rejuve Cocoon. I don't care if I'm a barbarian and I'm not going to be able to cast it half the time. I'm going to have it available in those tough raids.
Yeah, and, there's going to be a priority of healing, right? Like, the healer's going to keep themselves up more than anything. And then they're going to keep key personnel up, which is going to be your tank, maybe a kiter. Particularly if you're a pug in a raid, it's probably not you. You are probably not very important.
If it's your first time in the raid, you're probably not going to be on that priority list near the top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
No offense.
You may find that you spend a little extra time as a soulstone. You might be low on the list, or maybe you did something stupid and they don't want to get you back on your feet right away. Or maybe they're just going to let you sit there until the end. It happens sometimes.
But take that as a learning opportunity. Now you're free to watch and observe other people and what they're doing, and not worrying about trying to learn what other people are doing and keeping yourself alive.
And have some hit points too, folks. Don't walk into a Mark of Death, even on Epic Normal with 450 hit points, because you're just going to be a soulstone. Hit points are so important. Some people don't realize that. When your red bar disappears, though, you die. It's a very important thing to know.
And your ability to contribute to a raid approaches 0 as your hit points become 0.
Yes, your DPS is 0 when you're dead, too. That's important, too.
Something I want to mention, too, since we're talking a little bit about being dead here. Some raids have a raid penalty timer or death timer. So if you're dead, you may not be able to be rezzed right away. It can vary between a minute. I think it's basically a minute 30 or 2 minutes, depending if you're hard or elite, where those places apply. So just kind of be generally aware that
or in
might
Death
happen.
Worm.
Right,
Yeah.
and in Death Worm, you have to kill a wraith. Your party has to kill a wraith before they can get you up, or you can rubber band twice.
Or, in the heroic giant hold, you got the penalty box, where you're pretty much out of the raid until someone is able to get fly and go up there and pick the correct path to fly down to the shrine.
Yeah, there's
and
a couple
open that
places
gate.
where there's stuff like that. Just kind of
Another really important piece of gear, and I've been trying to emphasize this in my guild, is the Cursed Blade of Jack Jibbers, and that does work in raids. If you don't have that, it comes out of Three Barrel Cove. What's the quest?
Legend of Two-Toed Tobias.
Yeah,
The Impossible Farm.
It's not impossible.
It's a tough farm, but here's the thing. It's awesome XP. You should be running that every day as part of your regular routine. It's great XP, and you're going to eventually get it. And this allows you to self-raise even in a raid. And the way that it works, if you're not familiar with it, is it actually raises you as a wraith for 1 minute, and then you die again. But in that 1 minute, you can run to a shrine or get other people up. It's, we've had quite a few raids saved in High Lords because we lag wiped or something.
And it's a pretty easy quest.
Yeah, it's not terribly difficult once you.
And it's a pretty linear quest too.
Yep,
so
10 minutes.
Trying to figure out where to go is, your first time through, you'll figure it out.
And we knock them out in under 10 minutes on EE.
And it's a good opportunity to maybe use some of those astral shards to reroll a chest. If you're gonna reroll a chest, that's probably one of the best chests in the game to reroll. So let's talk about.
Don't re-roll with the expectation of actually getting it.
Yeah,
but
there's that too.
I spent like 700 shards re-rolling to get my Mythic Emerald Gaze.
Oh my god.
That can happen. Luckily, there's people who like to buy things off the shard auction house. Let's talk about learning. So before you go into a raid, or while you're in a raid, let's talk about ways that you can learn about the raid, what you should be looking for, that kind of stuff. Besides DDO Wiki.
Shameless plug coming up in 3, 2, 1.
One second, I just want to say, if I disconnect, there's a thunderstorm rolling in case you guys can't hear it.
Sweet.
I will hopefully be back soon. If I do,
Hell yeah,
if
that
not,
could happen
then
to
I
me
hope
too,
you all have a
actually.
great show.
So the shameless plug, it's actually a very relevant plug, is that on Sarlona, Hylers and Malkyr have been hosting these teaching raids to teach new players how to do raids. So it's for first timers or people that just did the raid a few times maybe and just still didn't understand what was going on. And we actually did videos of every raid in the game except Tempest Spine, because it's not really a real raid. And those there are links to them in the guides and strategies forum. There's a list of every one of them. They're also on my YouTube channel, which is Voodu Spice. So that's a great resource. It's designed for people who don't know how to do a raid. That's the audience. So check them out if you're new.
And they're about 98% correct.
Patrick has made some corrections and some addendums to the comments. So read the comments too.
I wouldn't say they made corrections so much as added information.
Yeah,
It's funny, you listen to them every once in a while, and be like, and I don't really know how this works, but this is how we think it works.
They're definitely not exhaustive explanations. They're designed really to give people a basic competency with the raid. I mean, we do go over all the important stuff, but there's definitely some nuance that's not there, stuff you'll pick up on as you do the raid more and more.
There's a few places where you'll find that, I think probably the most common, or least common place, the Green Titan from Master Artificer has an electric debuff that he puts on you and stacks up to 19 times. And most people don't really realize that it's there.
Know that.
So there's a lot of little nuanced things about raids that, first timer, you don't really need to know that stuff. There's like the stuff you need to know about the raid. This is what we have to kill. This is how we have to kill it. And when we have to kill both of these things at the same time. And oh yeah, don't go melee the Storm Reaver. Let the tank let the tank man up and solo it, and maybe pull out a thrower, but don't go melee the Reaver. Bad things happen.
And where can people find someone else's unshamelessly unplugged epic education raid walkthroughs?
So I used to do an epic education segment for DDOCast before I took over as the producer, which they're all still on blog form. You can also go listen to past DDOCast shows. There's a few that are actually some newer ones after I started producing that are specific to different raids as well.
There's also 2 specials, weren't there, that Siganan did before they turned the reins over to you?
Yeah, they did to fill out their shows to get to 300 for Gen Con. I think it was they did a show where some of mine. I think there were like 20 or 30 segments of Epic Education as well. They're in there, and if I think of it, maybe and I get some time, maybe I'll put them on the DDOcast page and maybe see if I can find other segments and do the same thing as well. Just have segments as separate YouTube videos. Maybe I'm not making any promises. It might happen, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Time permitting. But yeah, those are pretty dry. I'll warn you, they're pretty dry, but they are pretty informative and go into a lot of detail about some of that stuff as well. Thanks for bringing that up. That was so long ago, I kind of forgot about.
I remember watching the Fall of Truth Epic Education. I think it was on the old DDOcast before I had run the raid, because I wanted to learn something about it. Everybody was running it, and it helped me a lot.
Yeah, I tend to pick up on some of the little nuancy things, and I like learning about raids and quests. So I kind of, just my personality is like when I go into quests, I go in to learn about it and kind of figure out some of the nuances. Like I actually dove into the water in Mark of Death to read the description to see what it does, and went and played in the blue stuff to see what it does. We were talking about, when you're dead, that's a great opportunity to learn stuff just by watching. Don't just waste the time. That's how I learned how to do the Master Artificer electric floor puzzle. We wiped at that point, and I literally spent 20 to 30 minutes just watching how the puzzle worked and learning how it worked, teaching myself how to do it. So there's lots of ways that you can use that as well. And of course, ask questions. I think, there are some raid leaders that if you start asking questions, they'll boot you out of your party. They want you to know it. Look, that's fine. But I think by and large, most people that are leading raids will answer some of your questions. It might be pretty basic answers, and you're probably not going to get a lot of in-depth detail unless they're specifically doing a teaching raid like the Hydrogen Malcare do. But you can ask questions, and maybe ask questions of not the party leader. The party leader might be busy trying to organize things. Things are going pear-shaped, and they're trying to figure out what's going on and stay on top of things. But
rule number 1: if you're new to a raid, let the party know you're new to the raid.
Big time.
Okay, and you can even take that into other questing too. But particularly in raids, if you're brand new or have only done it a couple times or it's been a while, tell people.
I would at least send the leader
90%. Yeah, 90% of the people in the game will not boot you out of the raid party if you haven't done it before.
But 90% of those people will blacklist you because you screwed up royally.
Yes.
Unless maybe it's an epic elite raid, then they may be looking for somebody with some more experience. So if it's your first time, you may want to be cautious about joining something epic elite.
You can always send the leader a tell and say, hey, I haven't run this a lot. I'd like to learn. Do you mind if I join?
That's a really good form. I love when players send me a tell when I have a raid posted and they say, hey, I'm new, can I join? That's awesome. I love that.
And if they boot you or don't let you, that's not a party you want to be in the first place.
Yeah, but if those leaders are jerks to you, you know who to avoid.
As a leader, someone who leads a lot of raids, the people that send me a tell and say, hey, I don't know this raid, I'd like to join, do you mind if I come? I'm more inclined to bring those people along because they're showing an effort and a willingness to learn and follow instructions as given.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of
that brings me to rule number 2. Follow instructions. And if you don't know what to do, ask, and if they tell you to do it away, do it that way.
Even if you do know what to do, and this is kind of a little bit of a soapbox for me, even though I'm a little bit of I'll admit I'm a bit of a hypocrite. Sometimes I go and do my own thing in a raid but do it the leader's way. Whatever the leader wants to do it that way. If you do something different, you better have a damn good reason why you're doing that. Because I guarantee you, if they're a good raid leader, they're going to notice that you're doing something you're not supposed to be doing or not what you told them to do, and they're going to say, hey, you should do this.
Now I know to let Patrick not to join my raids because he's going to do his own thing. But that's so important. Like, there are multiple ways to do things in raids. Okay, and if the leader says follow that, and unless something goes seriously wrong, you should follow the leader's way, even if you don't think it's the optimal way. Like in Mark of Death, for example, if the leader says, we're killing trash and we have a trash crew, but you're on a wizard that can charm, don't start charming and stoning the mobs because that's not the method you're using. Go with the method that the leader said to do, and stick to the job that you were assigned to.
Yeah, raids are about communication and being on the same page as the other party members. Because if you're off doing your own thing, it just messes everybody else up because they're doing their job with the understanding and expectation that everyone else is doing the job that they were assigned in the manner in which they were assigned it. If
you have a really great understanding of the raid, and you like doing it a different way, maybe the way that I said, maybe there's a time where you should go do something needs to happen that the leader's not telling you to do, or maybe he told you not to do, and you're going to go do it anyways. But start by assuming that now is not that time.
Unless there's 6 people dead.
Or it's the same thing with sometimes on very, very rare occasions I've taken over a raid and just taken command and led the group to victory. But I always start with the assumption that now is not that time. It's not the time to do that. And I try to do it I try to start by doing it in a way that's not taking control from the party leader. Occasionally I've had follow truth runs where the leader was pretty green and I knew he was pretty green, trust me, we know. We know if you haven't been doing it very much, and that's okay. It's not bad. We just know. I let him run the raid, and we got all the way down to, I think, maybe 15% on both of them, and things went egg-shaped. The Reaver tank got chucked. He landed right in the middle of half the party with a boom, and things got crazy.
I hate
really
when
fast.
that happens.
And this was not a party that was prepared for that scenario. There were a couple people that just didn't know how to deal with that. It was pretty funny on the flip, like on the backside of it, seeing what happened. And the leader, I think, pretty much just like completely panicked. And I stepped in and said, "You do this, you do this, you do this, you do this. Go, 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 go. Get some. We gotta live for this amount of time. This is what we got. This is how we're gonna deal with it." And we got through it, and he sent me to a later and said thank you. But assume that it's not the right time for you to do that. If you start from that assumption, then you won't step on people's toes nearly as much. As an example of another example where I did something that the party leader said not to do. We were running Lord of Blades back when it was still kind of the end raid. With the Forge buff, he wanted us to work on Lord of Blades. Great, got no problem with that. Lord of Blades jumped in the air. He was gone for 10, 15 seconds. I went out and started working on a pillar for a little bit. And then when he came back, I just came back in, and but he sent me a tell. I said, "Hey, I don't want you to work on the pillars." I just said, "Hey, I know. I'm just waiting for Lord of Blades to get back down. I'm just filling some time," and he was okay with that. He could have said, "I don't want you to do that anyways," and I went, "Okay, great. Won't do that anyways." If they tell you twice, do it. If the leader tells you twice, I don't care how well you know the raid and what you think should happen, this, that, or the other thing, just do it.
They are still the raid leader.
Yep. Even if you're taking control or whatever, while you are running the raid, particularly if things are going pear-shaped, it's not the time to have a philosophical discussion about how the raid should be run.
Yeah.
It's just not. It's not the time to debate strategy. And my ways, I think this way might be better. When you're dead and you're reforming, now's a good time to have a discussion because you're not really actively trying to do stuff and coordinate.
Or before as the party's forming, have that discussion for the initial attempt.
Yeah, and I have on multiple occasions sent a leader a tell raid and said, "Hey, if you need help, or if I perceive that they might be new to the raid, I'll send them a tell and say, "Hey, I've led this raid a lot. If you have any questions before, or you want some help before we start, just let me know." And that's every time I can think of. It's gone over really well. You get a, "Hey, thanks. That'd be great. What do you think about this?" Sometimes, and I'll give them. I always try and, if you're gonna do that, I would say do it through a tell, so it doesn't look like you're showing them up. And it's just between you and them that they might need. So you're not saying that your way is going to be better or anything like that. Just send them a tell and say, "Hey, I'm really familiar with this raid. I can do anything you need me to do in this raid, or I can do X, Y, Z in this raid if you need it. If you have any questions or you need some help leading, let me know." And then go have fun. Have fun. Make sure you have fun. That's why we're playing the game, right?
That's rule 0.
Yeah.
It's a game. Have fun.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about some skills that you're probably going to want to learn or have a basic understanding of before you go into the raid. And I'll just open it up. If there's any skills that you guys are big fans of knowing before people start raiding.
Well, you got to know what the raid is going to require. Be it you're going to need a tank and a kiter, you're going to need 2 healers. You have to know what the raid is going to require before you make the party. Forming the party is the biggest skill, at least in the older style of raiding.
Yeah, I think these days you can get away with a little less specific roles, or maybe people that are maybe not necessarily considered a healer, but you've got someone who can do some spot healing for a tank that can mostly self-heal. If you're doing something on Epic Elite versus Epic Normal, maybe you do need more of a healer. And definitely it starts from forming. definitely been in plenty of raids where they failed, really because we just didn't have a tank. Or someone thought they could tank the Reaver and couldn't.
Yeah. Every update that comes out, every new raid, there are more and more builds that are capable of fulfilling any given role that you may need to have done in the quest or the raid. You know, if you need a healer, it doesn't have to be a cleric or a favored soul. It could be a druid, it could be a paladin, it could be a bard, it could be a ranger, if you really want it to be, or it could be a rogue. You know?
I think one of the marks of a good raid leader, and this goes true for even the people that are joining the raids, this is a good skill to know, is to know what to do when things go wrong. Because when everybody's just plowing through everything and everybody's overpowered and it's really easy, like, it doesn't take a lot of skill. But sometimes you get into groups where people are a little underpowered or maybe not prepared to know what to do in those situations when things go pear-shaped.
Or they're not putting everything in it that they can, or heaven forbid that maybe the healer's a little over the edge with the drinking tonight.
I have a feeling that might have been you
happens.
before.
There's yeah, you know, sometimes that stuff happens. I would say the thing that I kind of always like to start it out by pointing out for skills you need to learn for raid is aggro management. Not just if you're not the tank, you don't want to get aggro. So, you know, maybe don't plug a full mini shot into the boss right away. That's a good way to get aggro. You know, if you like to use Fury Shot, Mini Shot, and Fury of the Wilds at the same time, you know, spend 5 seconds plugging the boss, turn around and kill some trash with it for 10 seconds, then go back to the boss for 5 seconds, right? Like, you can.
That's why I max Diplo on my Monkshire builds.
Yeah, that's another way. Diplomacy versus Intimidate is a great way to do it. Look for threat reduction. If you know you can do a lot of DPS, you can do that. I know there's ways. What I usually tell people in Deathworm, when I'm running a Deathworm, I'll send 1 or 2 people in to work on the dragon full time. And then I'll tell them, hey, if you're pulling aggro from the tank a lot, go kill trash for a while. Let the tank rebuild up his threat compared to you. Doesn't necessarily mean that everybody needs to stop attacking. It just means if one person keeps pulling aggro, go take a break. Don't swing so hard. Go kill some trash for a few minutes. You know, there's other ways you can contribute without DPSing the boss a lot of times. The other thing is recognizing when you have aggro. I would say today's raiding environment you're probably going to see this most in Fire Peaks. Because if the 2 dragons get too close to each other, you can't damage them, which makes it really hard for someone to get and establish aggro because they can't actually hit them. So you need to understand when you have aggro, and if you have aggro or something big and nasty, just start by running away from the party. Go find a hole up somewhere, or kite it around in a different section of the party. Don't run around the entire map. Don't run other people over. Go find some open space and park there.
Specifically with Fire Peaks, if that dragon's supposed to be on the south, you want to run to the south.
Or at least in Fire Peak specifically, run away from the other dragon. Doesn't really even matter where you are, north or south. Just run away from the other dragon so that the right people can get control of the dragon, and they'll know better what to do with it. But
there are going to be some situations where you're going to find that you're not sure who has aggro. You know, you can be backed into a corner, but the boss is actually facing away from you, but you really have aggro. A way that you can positively tell is by using the assist target command. And if you don't have that hotkeyed, I'm not sure what the default is, but you can go into your UI set, your key mapping, and set the assist target to something. And so you examine the mob you're trying to figure out who it's aggroed on, and then you hit assist target, and you see who it's targeting. And that'll tell you absolutely who has aggro.
I've never thought of using it on an enemy. That's a good one.
good little tip.
Yep, I'm gonna have to go into my key mapping and figure out what the default is.
Mine is the letter Y. I know that, but I moved it.
I think Z might be default.
Z is examining, if that's what...
Yeah.
Okay.
That would be your examine window. So there's some things to think about with aggro. I think timing is also something that you need to learn how to do some timing things. Not just in raids, but there's some quests where you have to kill multiple things at the same time. It's mostly more common in raids, or you have to, like in Deathworm, you have to kill the dragon and then pull 2 levers at the same time in a really short window. And if you don't do that, you don't win and you keep going.
Tomb of the Forbidden.
Yeah, Tomb of the Forbidden would be another one.
Getting those gears through those bars is such a pain.
Not the best mechanic ever been in DDO. But there's a lot of levers around DDO that you have to pull at the same time. And just having an understanding of how to actually achieve that timing, whether it's countdown. Sometimes there's a countdown. Like in Deathworm, there's probably not going to be a Deathworm because it's going to be dragons down, pull the levers, pull the levers, pull the levers. Right? That's pretty much all you're going to get. So if there's timing aspects of raid, you'll want to know what those are. Like if someone asks you, go stand by to pull this lever, when do I pull it? That should be your first question. And maybe it shouldn't be when I say. It's like, okay, well, if you're busy and you miss something, when are you gonna say? Right? Like get a cue so you know when to pull that lever. It can be important. Just so people will know.
Another good skill to have, and this is kind of a meta skill, and I'm saying that because it's really good in all facets of life, but be able to learn from your mistakes. If you do something wrong, especially if it screws things up badly, figure out what you did wrong and figure out how to take corrective action. I was doing a heroic Von 6. I was leading it. This was just a couple weeks ago, and one of the speaking stones wouldn't talk to me, and I didn't know what to do. I went and rechecked everything, and I spent a half an hour, and I felt really embarrassed. But then what I found out is that I didn't click one of the rune wheels, on the other side of the map. I only hit it 3 times instead of 4 times. And that's why the stupid speaking stone wouldn't talk to me. And so, if you screw something up, you make a mistake, learn from that mistake and figure out how not to make that mistake again.
And be prepared that mistake might mean you don't get to rerun the raid with the group. Don't take it personally. You might get to run with them later. You might not. You might get blacklisted. Move on.
And hey, if you did make that mistake and that you see that same group up again next weekend, send the leader a tell saying, hey, I know I made a mistake last week, but I learned this and this from that. Would you mind if I joined?
Or the attitude of, hey, so you said I hosed the raid. What did I do? If you approach the leader from the standpoint of, or someone else in the party, hey, yeah, I don't understand what happened and why what I did was wrong. Can you explain that to me? Again, you're showing that attitude of wanting to learn, so you're probably going to have a much better interaction, particularly in the future, with that group of people. As opposed to, I didn't do that. Yeah, we saw you do that. Everyone knows you did, and you're denying. That person, I'm not going to want to run with that person or have them in my raid again.
Fess up. I mean, that's rule number 1 when you make a mistake is raise your hand and say, yep, I screwed up. And if they don't let you into the group, that's a group you don't want to run with in the future.
That reminds me of this one artificer that kept sending his dog over to attack the Reaver and then bringing the dog back to spread the boom around the party.
That's not a mistake. That's called griefing.
Trolling.
I have a story I like to tell. Back when this is Lord of Blades was kind of the end game. There was a guy that we got to the last phase where all the courier are spawning and there's a whole bunch of stuff, and we had someone that was pretty much just kiting it all around. And he kept going to attack the Lord of Blades. So we don't need to worry about the Lord of Blades. There's a tank on him. He keeps going to attacking the Lord of Blades, kind of hosing everything up. And I tried talking to him, saying in private chat. Finally, I sent him a tell, just, hey, can you please pull the lever that's underneath the platform? 20 seconds later, ding.
Nice.
It was a little mean on my part, I'll admit.
It needed to be done.
In my defense, it was the only piece of instruction he actually really followed, besides the things that, you would kind of normally expect them to be doing anyways without you telling them.
And even as a, when you're another good skill, I think, is when you're a leader of a raid, if there's something you don't understand fully, there's maybe a certain mechanic in a certain part of the raid, don't be afraid to ask the group. Like when I was first started leading Caught in the Web for my guild, I didn't really understand the mechanics of the end fight, which are kind of intricate. And so, don't be afraid to say, hey guys, this is one part of the raid. I'm not really sure, exactly what's supposed to be happening during this part. If there's anybody that feels like they know it, can you please, explain it to everyone?
Well, even you and I had a brief conversation about the puzzle in Master Artificer at one point, because you weren't really familiar with that, and I gave you a link to something so you can help learn that puzzle as well. So there's lots of resources out there for learning as well. Let's talk about kiting, because a lot of raids that people think need to be kited. You could kill it, but generally we just kite it instead because it's a little easier. So what are some tips you guys have for kiting?
Bomb, freedom of movement.
Freedom of movement, speed,
Yep.
and being able to take care of yourself, be self-sufficient, and being able to do a little bit of DPS. Because if you can't do DPS to it, you can't get its aggro, and it's not going to run after you.
Range DPS is crucial for kiting. I have seen a barbarian kite the 3 undead dragons in Fall of Truth Epic Elite. It's not as easy, though. It's a lot easier to range DPS, something like that.
Yeah, you got to figure out how to get aggro one. I think the biggest thing I see with kiting is pathing. How are you going to kite? And that's going to be different in different scenarios. A couple different examples. The dogs in Lord of Blades. I prefer to kite them in kind of a pie shape, so that I'm, pick a. This is a circle, so I'll pick a little pie wedge, about a quarter of the circle, and I'll just kind of run the perimeter of that pie shape. Because they have to stop to spew, and that pathing and that size works for other mechanics in the raid as well. Dragons in Fire on Thunder Peaks, big circles. They have long range, but you don't want to run in a straight line because they'll just pelt you with a fireball. So big circles. Same with Fall of Truth, or with Truthful One. Big circles if you need to kite. The smaller dragons in Fall of Truth, smaller circles work better, because the idea being that if they have to stop to fire their breath weapon, you want to keep turning. So when they stop, by the time they actually fire, you're out of that firing arc. So just kind of some the Shadows in Tower of Despair Part 2, which, by the way, I have kited those on a very surprisingly wide variety of characters, including a bard, using almost exclusively glitter dust and a dinky repeater, because I didn't have a repeater build at the time. So you'd be surprised what you can actually kite. Glitter dust would grab the aggro, and I'd just kind of run for my life. And if anything went up on the days, then it was their problem and not mine. That was pretty much how we did it. But, in that way, there's a lot of pillars in the room, so you kind of run outside the pillars, and then that forces that limits the ability of the mobs to cut your corner on your circles as well. So some things to consider. Anyone else have anything on kiting?
If you're supposed to be keeping a mob busy, don't kill it. If it comes back, you're not going to have aggro anymore.
That's a good
Hurt
point.
people.
Yep.
That's a really good point.
And know where not to go if you're kiting too. Like a lot of cases, you got to keep monsters separate from each other. So you have to have that situational awareness of, I've got my path I'm running, and then someone else accidentally steps into that path. You need to be able to adjust on the fly to that type of situation so that you don't bring those mobs together.
I would say as the kiter, you want to respect other people's space. If there's a kill zone, don't run your kiting path through the kill zone. It's not helping anything. And the same token, if you're not the kiter and there's a kiter, leave him his working area. Don't bring stuff over there that's going to make his life more difficult, particularly if they're going to do some kind of crowd control. That's not the worst thing you could probably do. So respect each other's space. know where each other are, use the little mini map. It's great for things like that. Let's talk about tanking. And I'm sure Voodu's got a whole list of things on things to learn how to tank, being a tank himself, and a lot of variations.
I love to tank, and it's
Yeah.
a skill that I just learned in the last couple of years.
What kind of tips do you have for someone who's new to tanking?
Well, we talked about this earlier, but understanding how aggro works is really, really important. And there are different ways to grab aggro. I always use intimidate, but you can be a DPS tank. You can just do massive amounts of DPS and also have extra hate generation gear. Hate generation gear refers to gear that will increase
Insight, I think, is what it.
insight.
effect
Is the name of the ability, and it will increase the amount of sort of attention that the mob gives you. So say if you're doing 100 damage to it, if you have insight 50% gear, it's going to treat it as though you did 150 damage to it. Understanding that the way that mobs see the players is there's sort of an invisible list, and if you're tanking, you want to be on an invisible list of threats to them, to that mob, and you want to be on the top of that list if you're the tank. And if somebody steals aggro, that means they went to the top of the list. They're doing more DPS or generating more hate, and knowing how to pull that back. So if that means say, hey guys, back off, give me a chance to reestablish aggro. Or if you're an intimidate tank, and this is why I love intimidate, because if people steal aggro from you, you just hit intim and you get it right back. And so and knowing what kind of intimidate you need. Right now in the game, I would say something on the order of 110 intimidate. It will no fail anything in the game.
The other thing with intimidate too is when you use it, I think if you're sword and board and you use intimidate, you get a bonus to threat for a short period of time too, I believe. I think that's whether or not you fail or succeed or fail.
So that's a good time during those, and if it shows up in your buff bar, that's a good time to just pour on the DPS, because you're doing even extra hate, generating extra hate during those 8 seconds, I think that it is, or 12 seconds or something like that.
And like we said earlier too, if one person keeps stealing the aggro, maybe that just means that person needs to go take a break from attacking the boss. But you can keep having other folks work on it. I think the philosophy is tanking that I've always approached with is the tank's job is not to kill the boss. The tank's job is to keep the boss from killing everybody else.
Yep.
Now, if you can do a lot of DPS, hey, more power to you. That's great. There's certainly nothing wrong with that. However, your primary job is to stay alive and to keep the boss from wanting to eat everybody else.
And it's not just important to establish aggro. I mean, it's really easy to do when you just give the tank a 30-second head start before everybody else starts DPSing. But I think sometimes what tanks overlook is the ability to reestablish aggro when they lose it. That is very, very important.
That's probably the hardest skill to master, reacquiring the aggro.
It's difficult to get that 110 in Tim.
I'm doing it on a pure druid. So
nice.
If you were a more traditional tanking class, it's going to be a lot easier.
I think druids have intimidate is a class skill, isn't it?
It is,
yeah.
But they don't get like bonuses in their trees.
Yeah.
Right. The other thing I'd say with tanking is positioning, which is kind of another topic which we'll use this as a transition period into positioning in general. But as the tank, you need to know what to do with whatever it is you're tanking. A lot of times that means you put your back to the wall and you make it face you, and then everyone else kind of comes in behind that to attack it, attack from the rear. Sometimes you maybe with Fire and Thunder Peaks, you'll do that for a little while, and then the dragon's going to get the buff, and then you run. You don't tank at that point, you run. Because they do upwards of 400% extra damage, which will pretty much flatten even the best of tanks at times.
You could have 2,000 hit points in that raid on Epic Elite, and you're still going to get one-shot it almost.
Yeah, they can really put on some DPS there. I think like Fall of Truth, or Truthful One and Fall of Truth. There's kind of two things with that. One, if you're tanking Truth, keep them facing, or the Reaver, you want them both to be facing the outside of the circle, because you don't want their special attacks to go towards the center. That's where your healers are generally going to be, because they got to... which also, you need to pick a spot where your healer can actually heal you from. I've seen a lot of people, as a healer in Fall of Truth, they'll take Truthful One, go hide in a little corner, and the only place that I can access to heal them from is basically on the other side of Truth, and to be close enough to do that, I'm in tail slapping range, which is kind of annoying. So you need to pick a point where you can be healed, and also where other folks can effectively damage the boss without being in the boss's cleaving arc. You know, a lot of raid bosses in particular are going to hit folks in an arc in front of them. Sometimes they'll even swing around and hit them behind them. And there's not much you can do about that, but most of their damage is going to be in an arc in front of them. And you want to keep everyone else outside of that arc. The other thing with Truthful One is if you get, if you kind of get up under his neck, he doesn't use his breath weapon nearly as much. He'll still wing bat you backwards and then use a breath weapon. But if you're right up at his torso, he won't. Dragons tend not to use their breath weapon because you're kind of out of range of it, or you're under range of it.
What you just said speaks to, respecting your healer. If you're not a self-sufficient tank, if you're not self-healing, and there's a healer assigned to you, don't be a douchebag to him, because he's gonna let you die. Sometimes they'll just let you die if you're being a jerk. Ask the healer, like, am I in a good position for you? You guys are a team, and you have to respect those roles. Also, you can ask the leader, where do you want me to tank this boss? Maybe a certain place, and maybe that's not where you typically do it.
We mentioned that for Fire and Thunder Peaks. Usually one dragon will be in the south, one will be in the north. You'll see that a lot in Fall of Truth. They put the Reaver on one side and the Truth One on the other side. I personally tend to leave that up to the people tanking them and tell them to not tank on top of each other, because I think Fall of Truth at this point, people are adults and typically, and they can figure that out on their own. If they have problems with it, I'll tell them, okay, you go take them here, you go take them there.
Another really good thing to do, if you know that you're going to be the tank ahead of time in a raid, switch to the Unyielding Sentinel Destiny. That's an awesome tanking destiny. Maybe you know your character build really well and you feel like you're a better tank in another epic destiny. That's fine, but generally speaking, Unyielding Sentinel, awesome for tanking. You get bonuses to hit point, bonuses to hate generation, bonuses to fortification, all kinds of good stuff in there for tanking.
More self-healing.
That bonus to threat generation is a tier 1 ability too, and really easy to twist in somewhere. Great little trick there.
150% extra damage or extra threat is nothing to mess with.
Yep. Especially when you start stacking that on other things. The other thing I want to mention with the position, I kind of touched on it from the tank perspective, but healers need to know where to set up to heal someone. Most of the time, I find if you think about having the raid boss, and then you have your tank on one side of him, and your off tanks on the other side of him, right on the other side. And it kind of creates you got 3 points, kind of creates a line. I generally set up 90 degrees perpendicular to that as a healer. Generally, but the primary thing here is you want to stay out of, particularly if it's like say the Truthful One has a pretty wide arc with their breath weapon. You kind of want to stay out of that arc. You don't want to get hit in those kind of scenarios. It's also not a good idea to stand near mob spawn points if you don't want to get the attention of things. And a pet peeve of mine, healers that something comes and starts attacking them, like, help me, something's attacking me. We're kind of busy. Can you kite it around for a few minutes?
Hit implosion and blade barrier.
Yeah. No, there was I remember in Fall of Truth, and someone like the 4th or 5th time he complained about trash, and I finally, and I was leading, and I finally came over and said, look, we got 3 people down, things are breaking down, you need to deal with it on your own for a couple of minutes. Shut him up. I don't know if he's necessarily happy with it, but shut him up. So kind of keep that in mind. I want to go back.
Well, just to emphasize or to add to some of the things you said about knowing where to stand as a healer, if you can find a sweet spot where you can reach like the tank and the main group, there's there's a spot I like to stand to end fight in Temple of Deathworm. It's kind of, off to the side of both the center mound and the dragon in the corner. Like in Mark of Death, I like to stand in the north by the entrance because, especially like on my favorite soul where I have enlarge, I can reach everybody on the platform. Staying in the north keeps you away from where the beholders spawn, and I have a quelling card item, so I don't worry about the quells that spawn in the north.
Yeah, it's a great example of using your positioning as well. And enlarge obviously is going to help any healer. Another example, Tower of Despair. You can set it up so one person can heal the party on Horath and one person can heal the people on Sulu.
Yep.
If you coordinate your party's positioning, you can easily do that in a lot of ways. I do want to go back to kiting really quickly. One thing I was going to mention is, and I see this a lot in Deathworm, where kiting means piking on a ledge with the boneheads, or hanging off of a ledge these days. If you are a kiter, you can actually do more things than just run in circles. Just going to put that out there. If you're kiting the Spectrals in Fall of Truth, you can pull out a thrower and do a little dinky bit of DPS. Or if you have your big boy with a bow or a crossbow or something, you can do things and still attack the main bosses.
Just be careful you don't pull the aggro of that dragon that you're trying to put a little bit of DPS on.
Again, aggro management. For a fair while with Lord of Blades, I was kiting the dogs on a healer, and I was still healing the party while I was doing that.
You can do that, yeah. If you're a skilled player, you can totally do that.
Kiting does not need to mean the only thing you do is run in circles. You can find other ways to contribute to the party, which I always want to put out there.
I had a really good tank when I was playing my favorite soul in Fall of Truth a lot, and all I had to do was hit him with Cocoon, and I could kite the dragons, throw blade barriers, use my leap of faith, and keep him alive.
Yep, lots of great ways to do that.
But
One more
if it's
thing
your first time kiting, don't try to do all
Too
that
much.
stuff. It's your first time.
Yeah, big time.
Baby steps.
Excellent point.
Learn how to kite, and then experiment. After you do that, you get really comfortable with kiting, then you can kind of experiment with what else you can do.
Another thing about healing and where to stand, if you are the healer, don't be afraid to politely ask like the tank to move if maybe you feel like they're not in a good spot, if they just need to adjust a little bit. You don't want to be bossy about it, or if it's a situation where I'll just take TOD for example, where there's a point where everybody breaks off and goes to Sully, and basically the tank is by himself on Horath. And if the tank is taking a lot of damage, I've done this before where I've said like, hey, do you mind just turtling up during this time because it's taking a lot of my resources to heal you. Because there's no reason for the tank to continue beating on the boss at that time.
I think it's my closing thought on being raid ready. If you phrase things in the form of a question, they can typically be much better received. So instead of saying, I think we should do X, hey, party leader, what do you want to do X? Right, like there's a difference in the way that you're saying that, and it comes across a little better. Taking Voodu's example here, hey, you're taking a lot of damage. Can you turtle up? Maybe it might make it easier for me to keep you alive. Or, hey, would you mind moving? I'm having trouble healing you where you are. Or, I'm having trouble healing you where you are. Is there a way that we can make this work a little better, or is there a place I should stand that will be easier to heal? If you phrase things in form of questions as opposed to, hey, don't stand there, go stand over here, I think it comes across better most of the time.
If there's anybody new listening, turtling up means shield blocking.
Yeah. And if asking the question, if saying it in the form of or telling someone to do something in the form of a question ticks them off, I can pretty much guarantee you if you just told them what to do, they'd be equally ticked off, if not more so. So, probably not going to lose anything. Do you guys have any closing thoughts on getting raid ready?
I feel
Ask
raid ready.
questions.
Yeah, I'm ready to take on all the raids right now.
Let's do it.
Ask questions. There's no such thing as a dumb question.
I told you this was going to be awesome when we figured it out.
Yeah, well, there is one thing that's a dumb question. The unasked one.
Yep.
All right. Before we get into the news, we have another little screenshot here of an Archon in front of a flaming door. This is, again, this is some promo art that, or I'm assuming game footage of some kind that the devs released. So let's leave that up for a minute, and we're going to start talking about game news. Update 27 Round 2 is on Lemania. There was not specific or quote official release notes. However, there were kind of some unofficial notes posted. As I said, it looked like Jerry had a little bit of time off, so there wasn't quite the normal. There wasn't a chronicle. There wasn't an official release note posted, or there wasn't a screenshot of the week. But so the new raid was released. There was a bounce pass to the monsters. They also temporarily turned on the crafting from the crafting storage, with the exclusion of Stones of Change. So hopefully, I'm really hoping that hits live soon, because I've kind of been putting off upgrading a few things. So just out of convenience of having to move things here to there and find all the stuff I need, so I'm kind of dragging my feet on doing some item upgrades until that happens.
I hate when I've got like 10 ingredients in one bag and it wants to take them out of that bag when I need the 200 ingredients that are in a different bag.
Yeah, that could be annoying. There were some more items for the raid that were created. The Test Dojo has all the items, so if you want to check that out. Let's see.
I'm drooling over the new items.
Yeah, there's some interesting items in there. I'm not really going to go through them too much. But is there something specifically that you're looking at?
No. Just a lot of stuff I'm going to want to get. But I'm glad. It's a giant hamster wheel, and this is what I wanted, because I was really disappointed in the last two updates. There's just nothing I want. And it's been kind of,
it's kind of funny that you say that, because most of the comments I've been hearing is there's nothing in this update. The last couple updates stuff is better. So, which I think is good in the sense that that's, as the developers are kind of trying. One of the things they say is, this update may not have something for such and such builds specifically, but they fill other niches. So there's some interesting discussion going on.
And that's something I think the devs said they kind of do intentionally.
Right.
Is, over the course of a cycle, they try to get something useful for everybody in there, but any one individual update probably won't have what you're looking for.
Yep. Let's see. They also they are going to expand the text of the Shavrath environmental effects. It's not on the current Lemania Pass, but we'll see in the future. So if you don't know, when you go to Shavrath, the plane of Shavrath, there's certain effects that everybody, you and the monsters, get. And those include a +4 morale bonus to attack, skills, and saving throws, and a +4 enchantment bonus to will saves versus fear. And they're also talking about removing the +4 bonus to saving throws, which I kind of think should stay in there, but that's kind of my... There's concern about DC casters being able to be effective there, and my own personal thought is that, sometimes DC casting isn't the best thing in a certain set of content. In other places, it is pretty effective. But they might pull that out of there. And on that note, in terms of balancing DC casters, they are removing the Epic Resilience from Update 27 quests. They want to revisit it in a more thorough fashion, ideally with some other factors, including Epic Warden-related things. And what Epic Resilience is it's something that's in all Epic content, but basically a healthy monster has a +10 to saves, and as they lose hit points, they lose that bonus to saving throws. They're also exploring options for spell resistance, which is a concern for this update, since about 75% of the monsters in Update 27 have some kind of spell resistance. And on Epic Elite, most Update 27 monsters would have spell resistance between 40 to 45. Again, I personally don't necessarily have an issue with that. I think that some content can have high spell resistance, and that's kind of part of the monsters and what you have to face. I don't know. What do you guys think about all that?
If they're going to have more spell resistance, we need to have more spell pen.
That's another way to think about it.
I wouldn't necessarily disagree or agree with that comment. I would just say that I think the game would be extremely boring if, every quest and every raid, the monster stats were the same. So if I can go through every single quest of the game and just, insta-kill every monster with my spells, that'd be boring. Likewise, if every monster was immune to all those types of spells, and I couldn't land any kind of insta-kill or DC-based spell, and I just had to DPS them down, that would be boring too. So I'm perfectly fine with some quests leaning more towards one type of monster in those two general categories as opposed to all the quests and all the monsters being the same.
To quote Shamgar, you can't be a one-trick pony.
Just thinking about that. It's the biggest problem with DC casters is they complain that DCs aren't working, which I'm not saying is not legitimate. I mean, there needs to be a place for DC casting, but if the only thing that you do is DC casting, if that doesn't work, then what are you going to do? It's just like, if you're a melee and you come up against something that, is immune to damage. I mean, there's nothing that actually is, but, or, maybe something has really high DR that you can't bypass. Okay, what are you going to do? You need another option. So,
yeah.
Now, granted, it's a little harder to do with DC casting, and I get that, and I'm not saying there shouldn't be a place for DC casting, but DC casting is a very powerful form of playstyle, and if it just works in everything, then where's the challenge? So, but yeah, one-trick ponies of DC casting are going to have a rough time at certain points, and they should, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, some changes to Warlock. They have a pair of adjustments for Enlightened Spirit abilities. The spell power scaling of Eldritch Burst and Spirit Blast is now 120% compared to 150%. And Shining Through now grants temporary hit points equal to 12 times your Constitution score. It was 15. The two abilities on live are a bit stronger than intended. So there you go. Let's see. In terms of making Elite more difficult, specifically Heroic Elite, this was from Severlin, Elite is tied to bravery streaks with bonuses, favor, and other rewards that current players are basing their gameplay and game time around. The current game demands playing through content for the very first time on Elite to get these bonuses as well, thus adding to the expectation that players should be able to complete new content on Elite. That's a good thing for many of our players. Making Elite even more difficult is not something they would want to do at this time. And I would say Epic Elite is, generally speaking, for the average player, challenging enough.
Yep.
That's my experience.
Now, what about this new difficulty I've been hearing about, Reaper? Is this going to be a real thing?
I haven't heard anything specific about it, and they kind of dodged the. As I recall, they kind of dodged the questions in those threads. I'm not exactly sure where they're at with that and how they want to do it, but they have in the past said that there's concerns with adding a new difficulty because why would you have, if you're going to choose a new difficulty, you need to make it compelling for people to run, but they don't want to have. There's the current problem with Elite right now where the incentive to run is so good, people feel obligated to run it. So you have to find that balance, and they're not, as far as I'm aware, they're not really sure where that balance is and what that's going to look like yet.
Yeah, and I'm not entirely certain I want devs spending, or Turbine to be spending their time and resources, meaning dev time and money, to be, revamping every single quest in the game to have a new difficulty. I would rather they spend more time on more content.
I agree with that, and I don't want them to just put 20 more mobs with 20% more hit points or 50% more hit points in the quest, because that's still the same quest.
Yeah. and I don't necessarily want the harder quests just because they've upped the DCs and their saving throws and gave them more buffs or the ability to do more debuffing.
Yep.
That tends to not be fun either.
There were some concerns about the Update 27 quests being too short. Apparently, folks are completing them in pretty low completion times. The response to that was, we need content with a variety of completion lengths, particularly at level 28. Temple of Elemental Evil is fairly long. Those are meant for players who want to complete some content and don't have as much time. The goal for the raid's length is somewhere in the ballpark of Fire on Thunder Peak's raid. I like variety in quest length personally. So I like to see that the XP rewards are generally like they make sense for that personally, but
Not like caught in the web.
well,
Right.
raids are kind of a whole nother ball of yarn with XP in general. So yeah, a longer quest should give you more XP than a shorter quest. I mean, but that's a really, really hard thing to balance, so not overly concerned with that.
I have not played U27 on Lamania, but I'm hearing that there are mobs you got to keep alive in the new raid, which, if that's true, turns it into basically an escort situation. And seriously, didn't we learn our lesson from Anna in Web?
The problems that Caught in the Web had were not Anna. That's my opinion.
Anna can
would say,
catch
didn't we-
fire. I hate
Didn't we learn a lesson in Threnel back in 2006
Yeah.
with
People
Coil?
don't like escort quests. I mean,
No.
let's not make a
I
raid
I didn't
understand
mind
this
Anna so
component of
much.
that.
Coil sucked. Anna was okay. You got more loot if you kept her alive. You didn't lose anything if she died.
Frankly, I never found it to be that difficult to manage her. But that's personal. I get. I'm not advocating for a lot of escort quests either.
No.
An escort quest here and there is fine, but a lot of them
Yeah.
is certainly going to be tedious. DDO Central in our chat room says the power players are either soloing, playing in guild, or have stopped playing DDO due to a lack of challenge. The Reaper difficulty will not kill pugs for elite difficulty quests.
That's a good
Maybe.
point.
I agree, and I personally would like to see a Reaper type difficulty, but I don't want them to do it in their old fashion of just putting more mobs and more hit points.
Basically, like the original Epic.
If done right, a new difficulty could be great.
But it's going to
Yeah.
take a lot of time and resources for them to do it right, and I would like to see them spending that on more content first.
Yeah, and going back to the length of the U27 quests, I'd agree with Patrick. I like a variety of lengths of quests. I think the only issue I'm going to have is that if the U27 quests are so short and the U28 quests are average or worse in terms of quality and length and pretty much every aspect, then I think we have an issue there. I mean, I know they just put out U26 with the Warlock, and they intentionally broke U26 in half to create the two updates with the quests and the class. But if the next update is similar to U26 and 27 in terms of what it offers, I think that's when people are going to really have issues.
Yep. We'll see. They teased some new Remnant rewards. There will be some new items added to the collector with Update 27. I'm hoping one of the items will be a Lesser Heart of Wood. I think that would be a good place for them.
I still haven't gotten my Mysterious Cloak, so...
Yeah. I would not say that I'm in any way, shape, or form actively trying to get these, but
Right.
the item that they tease is a Tome of Magic Resistance, which gives a +1 inherent bonus to MRR.
That's banging.
It better not cost a ridiculous amount, because I'm sorry, one MLR isn't
not
really
a
going
lot.
to do anything.
No, I'm not looking forward to that one MRR.
One anything doesn't do much of anything. It's
Yeah.
all of the +1s added up.
But they said it's not going to
Right.
stack with any other... With stuff. It's not going to stack
not
Well,
with
here's
stuff
the
like...
thing. We
other
have tomes
inherent-
in other areas. We have tomes in
Right.
other areas. And I think the thing that I find interesting about this is a tome of MRR, one, it implies there's going to be a tome of PRR. And a +1 implies that there will be a +2, a +3, a +4 eventually. Maybe not right away, but I think there's a fair expectation that it's not going to stop at +1.
Right, and that's my point. I mean, if there's right now, if they only put in a +1, it better not be ridiculously expensive, because I'm not going to waste my time trying to save up enough remnants for a bonus that, for all intents and purposes, does absolutely nothing.
At this point, though, don't you have 20,000 remnants sitting in your bank?
No.
No, but
In my
I've got
case, no, but
10,000
there are
turbine
people,
points.
yeah.
I'll buy it from them right there.
I mean, I've got like 20,000 in my bank, and I've already bought a mysterious cloak.
You must be running more content that's giving you those remnants.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know.
But I mean, the point being is, if it costs like 20,000 remnants for a +1 Tome of Magic Resistance,
Yeah, that would be.
why would I spend my 20,000 points on that?
That would be a little bit excessive.
It's the same situation they had when they first introduced the mysterious remnant rewards, and there was like basically potions of stuff that you can already get.
That was ridiculous.
Yeah, they need more interesting stuff to buy from them. More stuff that's. I think the pricing needs to be. There needs to be a better balance between what you get and the pricing.
When I saw that
sure.
they had the same augments that you could get in Giant Hold for relics, I was really, really, really disappointed.
But lower level augments is cool, that you can actually get them without having to spend astral shards.
Yeah, there's a lot of great opportunities for stuff there, and I like that they're putting stuff. I like the idea of having things of like tomes of PRR and MRR. I think there might also be an opportunity for, say, a tome of melee, ranged, or spell power.
Yeah, but I would
Double strike.
think that
I mean, there's a lot of those
things-
little attributes that we could get tomes for that would be kind of fun to see in there.
But wouldn't like PRR and MRR and even melee power, spell power, and range power, wouldn't those make sense to introduce those in increments of +10? To at least have some
Necessarily.
kind of actual
Yeah.
effect?
One MRR is, in my opinion, worthless.
If it's priced
I
right,
disagree.
I think +1 is okay. If it's 2,000 shards to get a +1 to MRR, I'm okay with that. Something around that line. And then
If they put it in increments of 5 or 10, I will buy them all day long. I will farm the remnants to get them. But 1, 2, I'm not going to waste my time.
Yeah.
I think they have to balance. There's a balancing act here because you don't want to make the bonus so good that everyone has to go and get it.
True.
I think that's kind of the balancing act. And again, they've only shown us one of the items. I'm not necessarily trying to defend them, but look, they've only shown us one of the items. There's it opens a door for some interesting possibilities for more tomes like this.
I love how this has turned into a debate show.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I like the idea of the MRR and in all likelihood the PRR tomes, but if they're introducing it with a +1 bonus, I'm not even going to bother.
That's fine.
And it's just another collectible that's going to continue to collect and stack and stack and stack.
But
in
at
my
least they're adding
banking
things
system.
that you can buy with them.
Yep.
Which
That's a good thing.
gives me hope that eventually they'll have something there that I'm going to want to spend those on. Again, it all
Right,
comes
but-
down for me. It all comes down to pricing. If
Yeah.
+1 is 10,000 in remnants, no, I'm not going to bother with that. That's ridiculous. If +1 is a couple thousand and the upgrade to +2 is a couple thousand and the upgrade to +3 is a couple, that's something that maybe might be more useful and nice and incremental and stuff like that. So you feel like you're getting somewhere with it. But I also have the problem of having 15 some odd characters. So stuff like this is a little harder for me.
I play one character.
Yeah.
I play one. And I'm not a remnant farmer personally. I skipped out on a lot of it to get more lives. But I've only got maybe 7,000 remnants.
Yeah. It's all about pricing and drop ratio. That's really where the issue, I think the biggest issue with remnants is going to be and continue to be for a while. And they have stated their reasons, and they are respectable reasons. I'm not necessarily sure that I don't disagree with the reasoning for why they chose the prices. I think they're still the prices are still too high, but that's the way it works sometimes. But
Yeah,
I like
like
that we're
when they
seeing the different tomes, and I'm hoping they're going to drop. It'd be nice to see some of that stuff drop as rare random loot throughout the game as well. I think that would be another option, kind of like we can get skill tomes in random places as well. I think it'd be a beneficial thing. Let's see. That pretty much covers the news. I'll cruise through some of the other fun stuff. Bonus days, +1 loot and double remnants through today, the 19th. The sales for the week through... I have to do math because I forgot the date again. Through Thursday, what was that? 23rd?
23rd? Yeah.
23rd sounds right. You can get 30% off of character slots, healing items, SP potions, and questing tools. You can also get 35% off of character inventory slots, 75% off of the Half-Blood Champion bundle that gives you half elves and half-orcs.
Should give you halflings too.
It doesn't. Well, halflings are free, aren't they? So we'll give you. Maybe we'll talk into giving half elves, half orcs, and then one returning halfling thrower or something like that. 50% off of long-lasting stat buff potions and 50% off of iconic heroes. A great time to buy those. The last half of those are the summer sales. The freebie for the week is a lesser guild renown potion with the code LGRN3, one per account. Community news. There was no Chronicle this week. However, there were some fun, interesting blogs this week. Tactlicious and Craftlicious had a blog on understanding Warlocks, as well as he looked at the Update 27 raid loot. And I think he had a second one that showed some of the artwork for those items. DDO Gamer talked about having a Jack Jibbers blade and how cool that is, so you can check that out.
Which tied nicely into our earlier discussion.
Yeah. Axel DDO had a video on the new raid and his thoughts on that. I did not watch it. I did not want the spoilers personally. Check that
Axel's got a good channel. Check it out.
Yeah, he does. Let's see. Lessa did a challenge tutorial of shortcuts. It was a short little 15-minute video that gave her method on doing shortcuts. Good method. And the Confessions of a Geek Mom had cleric thoughts on the Death XP changes, so you want to check that out. She's doing a really good job. She's one of the newer bloggers and has some fun articles from a very different perspective, particularly about parenting a player of DDO as well. The Players News had their 41st episode with DDO Central, so you can kind of check out. That gives a little bit of insight into what he's doing over on DDO Central, which unfortunately is a blog I should probably hit and plug a little bit more often. It's kind of an aggregator blog site, so he reposts various blogs. It's a great blog. The reason why it doesn't tend to get mentioned on this show is because I'm mentioning the actual people who did the articles. He doesn't tend to do new content. He tends to mostly just do repost other people's content.
But it's a great one-stop shop.
Yeah, I go there. I have a set of sites that I go to every day looking for news, and that's one of them. And sometimes it's where I get some of these blogs from, honestly. But he doesn't get much credit for that. So he's doing a great job. I should get him on the show at some point as well. The DDO players are also doing a poll on their favorite race. You guys, what's your favorite race?
Human.
Human or halfling?
It's kind of funny. Warforged. Come on, guys.
They're too ugly.
They're
I
awesome.
like the extra feet and the damage boost. Or whatever boost you want.
Skills.
Humans are a really solid race.
Enhancement tree is nice too. Greater heroism. And some other junk.
Yeah.
Skill bonus.
DDO Central also posted in our chat. The website is ddocentral.com. If you want to check that out. He's got links for... He reposts articles. He's got links for pretty much anyone that's doing anything DDO related in there as well. So, see, the Damsels of DDO had their 28th episode, and the Cocktail Hour had their 88th episode. Both fun listens as always.
Nice.
See, DDOcast news. The summer scavenger extravaganza will end soon. There are lots of points up for grabs, lots of goodies. Basically, you go find some things in game. Send me pictures of them. You get points, and we'll draw some winners out of that. But you have to submit before update 27 hits live. You can send a submission in and then update it and get more points. You don't have to send it all at once. So don't worry too much about that. But if you're playing, start sending that stuff in. Make sure you get some points on the board. I think the high score right now is somewhere around 100 and I want to say it was 161 or so. And that particular person found 70 different waterfalls throughout the game, which is pretty impressive. And DDOCast Splat is also, the last episode is posted. There will not be a DDOCast Splat this week because of my schedule. And then general gaming news. Gen Con is July 30th through August 2nd. If you're going, have fun. And PAX Prime will be August 28th through the 31st. And I've said it a few times, but I will organize, unless someone beats me to it, I will organize some kind of a small players gathering. I just haven't gotten around to it, and probably won't until August hits. So, but if you're going to be in town for PAX Prime, you can expect something probably Friday night. So that over there. And Skunk City in the chat says that C. Morgu will be incorporating a how to Zerg aspect of his stream shortly. So that could be fun. And he's also giving a shout out for Voodu's YouTube and our walkthroughs on DDOCast as well. If you haven't visited our YouTube page, DDOCast YouTube page, there's different playlists that include some walkthroughs as well as just our shows, and DDOCast Splat are all kind of broken up if you want to watch certain things. Lighting post this week. Chris Church asked, how long is an Eberron day? If he just missed the Hunter's Feast in King's Forest, how long would they have to stay in the instance for it to proc again? And I put this in here because there's kind of two things going on. There's the day-night cycle, and then there's instance resetting. And they're not related. If you're waiting for something to respawn in an instance, you're generally going to have to go reset the instance.
Well, the Hunter's Feast, I believe, is a rare encounter, right?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't it bugged?
Yeah.
So
Couldn't tell
I
you.
have gotten it to work, but not reliably. I have completed that in the past, and
I think maybe
wanna
I'm
say-
thinking of that one on the high road that's bugged.
yeah, I don't know, but I believe it is in fact a rare encounter. So resetting the instance is not going to guarantee that it's there. But you have to keep in mind too that DDO is not a persistent world MMO like Lord of the Rings Online, where things are out there all the time and they're on some kind of set cycle. DDO is strictly instance based, and everything is based upon which version of the instance you're in.
Yeah, if you're waiting for something to reset in an instance, you're going to be waiting a long time. And it's not related to the day-night cycle.
I want to say that it took maybe 20 minutes to 40 minutes for it to get dark enough for the hunter to be active, or to accept my...
Oh, is that what's going on? It's one of the ones that has to be night?
Yeah.
Yeah, the sky has to get dark.
I thought I remember reading quite a while ago that the day cycle was 15 minutes long, but it seems like a lot longer than that to me.
Yeah, I'm not sure how long. I sent Jerry a ping, but he didn't get back to me yet. So if I get an answer on that, I'll let everyone know. But generally speaking, if I guess that would be, he's asking about an exception. But generally speaking, if you're waiting for something to reset, you're going to need to reset the instance. Let's see, Enrique wrote in regarding some stuff that Samus and I were talking about in regards to true reincarnation fatigue. And he meant, just to kind of paraphrase what he wrote in about, he had a Kopesh fighter and did a lot of Kopesh builds, and then he did a Thief Acrobat Rogue life and a Monk life, and found that having to change weapons did indeed make going through a reincarnation again a lot easier. I don't know if you guys have any quick tips for avoiding reincarnation fatigue.
Don't try to do too much too fast.
Yeah.
You want to be a completionist, but you're not going to get it done in 2 months.
Right.
Well, you're not.
I got
Don't
it done in
forget
6.
what we said was rule 0 in the beginning, and that's have fun. If this game starts to turn into too much of a grind, or feel like too much work or too much of a job, I think you've lost sight of things, and it's just going to ruin the whole experience for you. So have fun along the way, and remember that it's not just the goal, that it's the journey getting there too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and keep in mind too, if you're one of those people who just wants to throw money at the problem, you're still gonna have to grind, the same portion of the quests 15 times for all the different classes and stuff if you want to get there. So,
Make it
Rule
fun
zero,
for
have
you.
fun.
Yep.
Make it fun for you. Our survey question for the week comes from Francisco Antelenis. How do you compensate for the lack of epic destinies? Here's my answer. Go farm
Run
some
epic
favor.
content.
Go farm some favor. Get some turbine points and buy epic destinies.
Yeah,
I think he might
Or-
be speaking more towards the fact that there aren't enough epic destinies.
That's the way I read it.
Me too.
Or is he saying the absence of, or that there should be more? That's two different questions.
I think he's-
don't know.
I read it as like he doesn't have epic destinies, or he doesn't have all the twists of fates unlocked and everything. How do you compensate for not having
I
every
took it as that
epic
he
destiny
didn't own it.
ready?
If you didn't own
If you don't own epic destinies, I agree with Patrick.
Yeah,
Yeah, you gotta get them.
You
Get
buy
'em.
it.
if you don't have a lot of epic destiny experience, then yeah, just go run and start,
epic content.
start lower content. Don't jump into level 24 content or run with friends.
Yeah, and
That's
as I mentioned earlier in the show, or maybe it was before the show, I don't remember at this point. My last epic life, I was trying to do a couple of very specific things, and I literally spent levels 20 to 28 running Vaughn 3, 5, 6, Chronoscope, and Legend of Two-Toed Tobias.
Mhm.
And
Running all those quests on epic normal is a lot of XP.
Yeah, and I literally went from level 21 to 28, and I filled out 9.5 of the 12 epic destinies.
Yeah, just start working on them. You'll find that a lot of the lower level content, you don't really need to have high level destinies. You might not be as powerful as a lot of the people you're running with. That's okay. We were all there at one point or
And
another.
every one of those
Yeah.
people remembers it.
I'll be there
They
soon.
will understand.
I have a character that I pulled out of dusted off the cobwebs and started running so I can turn him into a warlock eventually. But it's a little, it takes some time. So with that, I want to close out the show. Steiner, why don't you plug your Twitter account and anything else you want to plug?
Yep. If you want to hear me randomly talk about random nonsense, you can follow me on Twitter at Steiner-Davion. And I occasionally post a blog over on DDO Gamer. If you have anything you want me to write about, shoot me a tweet, and I will try to oblige.
Kantouch?
You can follow me on Twitter at Kantouch420. If you're on Caneth, you can find me in game random nights of the week or on Sundays. I want to shout out to my guildies, Stinkfist, Tokaru, Mortal, Lilypad, Theo, Mejia. You guys rock. Everybody else that I forgot, you rock too, even though I didn't mention you.
And Voodu, would you plug your stuff too?
I do run an official fan site, so you can find my YouTube channel on the fan site listing on DDO.com, or you can search YouTube for Ginger Spice, or the name of the channel is Voodu Spice. That's Spice with a Y. And I just started a new series of me working through my 3 Warlock lives on Ginger Spice. This is not intended to be a guide. It's just me working through my lives and learning things along the way. So if you're kind of newer to Warlock, we can learn together. I'm going to be posting episode 5 tonight after the show.
ADQ is awesome.
Oh, thanks, man.
Thanks, guys, for joining us. And our last screenshot of the week is, again, from the promotional material. Nice little archon with a conspicuous-looking hallway. You can enjoy it. We'll close out the show. So thanks for listening to the show. Thanks, guys, for joining me, particularly on short notice. We put this together pretty quick.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it was great. I think it was a good discussion as well, so a lot of fun.
Big time.
And thanks to other contributors to DDOcast, and thanks to Turbine for making DDO, and thanks for Wizards for D&D and letting them do that, and thanks to CyberEars for hosting the podcast. You can hit us up at DDOcast.com. You can get show notes, our calendar, previous shows. We have a little swag store there as well if you want some of that stuff. There's also some other fun things going on. you want to be part of the show or just say hi, you can email us at ddocast@gmail.com. We do questions and tips every week. If you have something you want to share, just shoot me an email, and we'll get it on the show. The closing tip for this week, DDO Dude on Sirlona says lesser vampirism items like heal over time spells for melees, especially for the lower levels, and can be great. I actually have one of those on my my druid right now in low level epics that has been getting some pretty good use.
Vampiric Stone Dust got a lot of use back in the day. The hand wraps from Lord's March.
So until next time, may all your attack rolls be crits, all your chest level appropriate, have fun, and don't forget to be safe in your raids. Keep all arms, legs, limbs inside the raid vehicle at all times until the raid has come to a complete and full stop.